Hey there, EB here on the Anything But Bland weekly update. It's been a week or almost 2 weeks now since we've done our last weekly update, and so much has happened. We have lots to talk about, but first, happy Benchuary. Benchuary is the new Sorinex slogan for February. We're going to focus on our bench presses and our chest exercises. We have Squattober for October, which is, obviously working squats, legs, and then December, which is deadlifts for December. So go to Sorinex.com, get your sweatshirts, get your shirts. It's really top quality gear. It's fun to wear around. So let's get started now. First, let's talk about the Super Bowl. My birds, they won. Go Eagles, go. Fly Eagles, fly. This is their second Super Bowl in the history of their franchise. This is their third Super Bowl they've gone to since 2017. They beat the indomitable Chiefs. The Chiefs were going for a three-peat. They won a total of three Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes was going for his fourth. Clearly a juggernaut in the NFL. They did not play their best football. The Eagles' defense was absolutely amazing. Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, was just extraordinary in how he called his game. They did not blitz at all, but the four linemen between Jordan Davis, Williams, and Sweat and Jalen Carter just put so much pressure on the offensive line and had so much thrust push that they sacked Patrick Mahomes 5 times, rushed him forced a rush pressure another six. It really was a blowout by halftime. The touchdown that Patrick Mahomes threw to Worthy was amazing at the end of the game. It was a 60-yard throw, but it was too little too late. Um, Jalen Hurts showed that he is a top flight quarterback. You're talking about in his 5 years in the NFL as a second round draft pick. He's already gone to two Super Bowls and won one. And the Super Bowl that he lost, 38-35, he had amazing statistics. He's just the third football player since Joe Namath um, and Joe Montana, legends, who won both a national championship in college and then a Super Bowl. You see the girls behind me. They have their Valentine scarves on, Stella and Coco. Um, so they're in here listening to anything but bland. So Jalen Hurts was awesome. Nick Sirianni is going to obviously get rewarded with a big contract. He's a controversial coach for the Eagles, and they're going to have to pay him big money because he's taken them to two Super Bowls. Um, he's done a great job. They lost their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, today to the New Orleans Saints. Hey, Lisa, how you doing? You see the pups. They lost their coach, offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, to the New Orleans Saints, so that's a big loss. Um, Andy Reid's still going to go down as one of the top two or three best coaches in NFL history. The Chiefs obviously are disappointed. I think they finally lost a lot of offensive weapons over the years in trying to plug and play. And Patrick Mahomes is still the greatest quarterback, but he is not the GOAT. Tom Brady has won 7 Super Bowls, six with the Patriots, one with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and has gone to 10. And the three that he lost by less than one touchdown. Patrick Mahomes has been to 5 Super Bowls, won three, and two of them have been blowouts. So let's slow the talk on Mahomes being the GOAT. He's certainly the greatest quarterback in playing in the game today. Um, Travis Kelce did not have his best game, so it's going to be questionable whether he retires. He's under contract next year for $17 million. It was a disappointment that the crowd booed Taylor Swift. I didn't think that was right. I think Taylor Swift has certainly broadened the appeal of professional football to many more women and younger children. Saquon Barkley, in fact, yesterday was on the Howard Stern show or this morning, and he said he thought it was in poor taste that we're trying to expand the league, and who better to do it than Taylor Swift? So I was a little disappointed in that. Um, President Trump was there, who's the first president ever to go to a Super Bowl game. He also did an interview that we'll talk about with Brett Baer at 3 o'clock before the Super Bowl that was recorded on Saturday. He said some interesting things in that interview that he wants to own. I will own, not the United States, I will own the Gaza Strip. And we're going to talk about that later. I will say one thing. I do think that Donald Trump, although I disagree with his politics, um, he is talking to the American people every day, multiple times a day. Uh, he is not shying away from what he's doing, and he's doing exactly what he ran his campaign on. I disagree with it, but it's refreshing to finally see somebody who comes into office and do exactly what they promise they're going to do. Whereas, most politicians promise the world, sell you a bill of goods, and then they go in and they don't do what they promise. So you elected him. This is what you're going to get. And Joe Biden at the end of his presidency was invisible. Um, I think Trump is instilling a lot of confidence in some of the public, and certainly the fear factor for the world. I mean, yesterday and all week, he said Hamas has until 12 o'clock on Saturday to release the hostages because they had said that the temporary ceasefire deal had been violated and they're not going to adhere to it. So he is speaking with a big stick and people are listening. I thought the Kendrick Lamar halftime show was interesting. I didn't really understand the words because the music overpowered his words, but once I started researching it, it really was an in your face to Drake. The diss track that he did when he humiliated Drake and said that he's a child pedophile. He used the words Drake is going to be with A minor. You thought he was singing in A minor. He's going to sing with A minor. The A minor is underage kids that he says that he's with. He wore an A on his pendant. Everything was in red, white, and blue. Um, and then bringing Serena Williams, his former girlfriend, on stage, and then the other female singer who was just incredible with her voice, who was in the red leather outfit, which is his other former girlfriend, was really just sticking it in your face. It's a real strong feud. Obviously, Drake is suing the record label that both of them are on for defamation. So we'll have to see where that goes. Next, I want to talk about the Grammys. Taylor Swift did not win an award, which was unusual. But I want to talk about Kanye West because I think he is a despicable human being. Not only despicable with his anti Semitic rants that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but what he's doing to his wife, Sensori. She is an architect from Australia, and what he makes her do, wearing these kind of naked outfits. She was literally came on the red carpet, took a fur coat off, and she had some kind of sheer netted gown on that showed her whole body. It's objectifying women. It is embarrassing. I can't imagine what her family feels like. And if you saw her eyes, she was horrified. From what I understand, she wanted to wear a gown, but he wouldn't have anything to it. Um, he then the next day started on an anti-Semitic rant where he said Hitler is so fresh. He said, I have dominion and control over my wife. He said, I have many good close friends who are Jews, but I don't trump them. I don't trust them. He said, I love Hitler and I'm a Nazi. He is despicable. If you buy his music, you are only perpetuating these anti Semitic, hateful rhetoric and spew that comes out of his mouth. You are only perpetuating his ability to manipulate and humiliate women like Sensori. So I hate the guy. I loathe the guy. If he was in my face, I'd spit at him and I'd get in a fight. I know there's a shirt out now that shows a Jewish star in a hand with the middle finger and it says, F Kanye. That's exactly what I believe. He's a cancer. He's a crud. And I just think that, it's further perpetuating the cultural war that we're in. So now let's start talking about that cultural war. There's been over 120 executive orders that President Trump has already put in place since his inauguration on January 20th. Um, he is dismantling, with the help of Elon Musk and his crew, as well as some of the other appointees in the cabinet, of dismantling the deep state. What I am not seeing, though, is what he ran on, which is he ran on inflation, and that Biden was, um, perpetuating inflation, the price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of clothing, the price of childcare. Not one single thing has Trump done to lower the prices, lower inflation. In fact, everything that he's talking about doing, these tariffs, with the tariff war with China over steel and aluminum coming into our country, threatening the EU with tariffs, um, implicating and putting aluminum tariffs on Canada, who is our largest trading partner. Hey, hold Booley, I am so concerned about his wife, um, the Kanye West wife, that I just don't know what's happening on that. But back to this, there has been no executive orders lowering the cost of living, which is what everybody wanted, which was, yes, there was some immigration votes, and I definitely think that the immigration had to get under control, and he's doing a decent job. He's maybe going a little too far in some areas, but he's doing a decent job. But the main thrust was economics, uh, and he's doing nothing on that. Next, we're starting to hear slow rumblings from J.D. Vance and a couple of the senators, Tommy Tuberville, Mike Lee, who was a former Utah senator, a former Supreme Court Justice Clerk, is saying that maybe Donald Trump doesn't have to follow orders that are entered by federal judges, because there's a lot of these federal judges that have put injunctions in place for some of these executive orders from going in effect. And these aren't just Democratic judges. These are some Trump appointees and some Reagan appointees, Republican judges, who are saying, look, what you're trying to do, you are usurping the Article 1 functions of the Constitution from Congress. Congress enacts laws. The president enforces those laws. Congress has the power of the purse, and they allocate funds for certain legislation. And once those funds are allocated, it's the executive branch that implements those funds and puts them in place. Well, what Trump is doing is, for funding that's already taken place with U.S. aid and other groups, including some entitlement programs, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, he has stopped the funding for these programs. And the unthinkable has happened, which is we could be headed for a constitutional crisis. This is the first signal that the executive branch may disregard court orders. If that happens, there really is a full blown constitutional crisis. Andrew Jackson refused for John Marshall on the Supreme Court. He told John Marshall, when they made an order about the Cherokee Indians or the Cheyenne Indians in Georgia, who's going to enforce your order? Who's going to do it? Who's going to make me comply with your order? Now, ultimately, it was resolved, but that was a very scary time. The second time in history is during the Nixon Watergate era, where the Supreme Court subpoenaed his tapes and he said he wouldn't comply. He ultimately resigned, so that issue never came to a head. But what happens if a court orders the executive branch, Donald Trump, or the attorney general to do something, and they decide to disregard a court order? The problem is the court system doesn't have a separate police. They don't have a separate police force or a law enforcement force. They have the U.S. Marshals. but the U.S. Marshals are under the purview of the Department of Justice that's under the executive branch. So it's the one flaw that the founding fathers put in place that if the executive branch or the legislative branch doesn't follow what the courts dictate, we will have our first major constitutional crisis. Remember, the judges interpret the laws that are enacted by Congress or the behavior of the executive branch. And when they do that, they're performing their Article 3 of the Constitution functions. So I hope I'm wrong. It's up to the court to determine the length and breadth of the presidential power. Um, I thought during the interview that President Trump gave to Brett Baer before the Super Bowl, something interesting came out, and that was Brett Baer asked him, "Are you going to endorse today that J.D. Vance is your successor?" And he said no, which was a strange answer. He obviously picked him as his vice president, so God forbid if something happens to President Trump, this is who he wanted to be the next president of the United States. But he didn't give him an endorsement. And you and me and a lot of others would say, wow, that's really, really strange. But it's actually pretty smart. And this is why I tell you, because at any given time, 1/3 of Congress, whether you're in the House or you're president, these people think they are going to run for the president of the United States. And Donald Trump needs them to vote with him on issues that are important to him. And if he already endorses J.D. Vance that's going to be his president in 2028, or if some crazy thing, Trump takes a third term, which is against the Constitution, if he takes a third term and then it's J.D. Vance, now these people who want to run for president really are going to realize they have no chance of becoming president, and therefore they may not stay in the fold or stay in line and vote for Trump's issues. So I thought that was a pretty smart thing that he did. The whole issue right now with Elon Musk, to me, I think is one of the most troubling things that I've seen since I've been a lawyer. Now, I want you to understand the rule of law is so important to me as a lawyer. The court system is important to me. The separation of powers, the legislative functions, the bills arise that start in the House and they go through the committees and get to the Senate. And then there's a joint approval. And then they go to the president who signs or vetoes them. And then it's implemented. That is how our Constitution was designed to work. And right now, by appointing Elon Musk and Doge and all these minions that he has working for him, whether they're the 19-year-old kid or the 23-year-old whiz kid, none of these people, including, yes, Casey, Musk scares me too. Casey Odell, how you doing? None of these people have been vetted. None of these people have had a background check. None of these people have had a security clearance. We know nothing about them. We know that one of them was prejudicial and an anti-Semite. He made some comments about Jews and Indians and immigration, and he was fired, then rehired. We know nothing about them. We don't know anything about Elon Musk other than he's the richest man in the world, other than he's probably a really smart man, other than he has huge contracts with the government, with SpaceLink and a whole bunch of other stuff. In fact, today, interesting, he had a $400 million contract for armored cars for Tesla to be supplied by the government, and it was paused today, which is a good thing. But the purpose of Doge, and I agree with Doge, let somebody go in and look at these departments. Sure, there's fraud, waste, and abuse. Of course there is, but it doesn't predominate. The fraud, waste, and abuse may be 5% of what the overall expenditures of these departments are, but you don't kill the other 95%, which you're doing great things. Like USAID does AIDS medicine, HIV medicine, it does malaria medicine, it deals with famines in Africa and in the Sudan. Really good stuff. I mean, we don't want people starving to death in the world. And the United States is supposed to be the beacon of light on the hill that Ronald Reagan said, the conservative Republican, the father of the Republican Party. And they're eliminating all these departments because maybe there is 2 and 3 and 5% fraud and abuse. Get rid of it. I totally agree. Get rid of that fraud and abuse. The problem is you can't throw the whole baby out with the bathwater, and that is what's happening. I want Doge to go in and do their job, not access my financial information, my personal private information and yours. Don't get it. Read only. Don't get a copy of it so Elon Musk can use it on his platforms, whether it's X or to find out algorithms or who's interested in what product. Um, and then take what you have to Congress because it's their job to either um, get rid of a department, modify a department, cut funding to the department. But what you have is these congressmen have abdicated their responsibility. And a rogue guy like Elon Musk, who has had Trump do an executive order about funding to Africa, that if they don't start reversing the apartheid legislation to get rid of apartheid so that white farmers now will get an advantage over the rest of the country. He's trying to reverse it back to apartheid. Elon Musk, we already know, is his talk to the far right conservative German party. We know about him doing the swastika. We also knew about the Catholic priest that was pushed out of the Catholic Church. He did not the swastika, the Heil Hitler sign. Elon Musk is a dangerous man. Elon Musk said in his Oval Office press conference yesterday with his 4-year-old kid on his shoulders, which was, I think, disrespectful to the Oval Office. He said, I'm going to get a lot wrong. You know, he came out last week and said, oh my God, we're sending 50 million condoms to Gaza. Let's stop that. One, it isn't Gaza in Palestine. It's Gaza in Mozambique. And it is to stop the spread of AIDS. That's what we want. And he said, oh, you know what? I got it wrong. Well, you know what? You can't get it wrong. People's lives are at stake. I just think Elon Musk is a real problem. The banks are losing millions and millions of dollars for financing his X purchase of Twitter. It's now X. He purchased it for $44 billion. It's worth less than $7 billion. It's losing tons of money. What I object to most is Elon Musk. There's no transparency. There's nothing. He's just making blanket statements. We're saving billions and millions and trillions of dollars from fraud and abuse. Tell me what is it that you actually have uncovered that you are going to save. Everything I think he's doing is some dubious cuts. Again, there's no vetting of his employees. They're getting crushed because the judges are enjoining everything they're doing, except the one judge yesterday who reversed the severance offers to federal employees, of which 65,000 of the 2 million have accepted. The federal judge said that the union for the federal employees, who was the plaintiff in the party, they don't have standing to argue on behalf of the federal employees. It has to be a federal employee. So they're going to also put in now a federal employee as a plaintiff. But, you know, how are these people going to be paid? We don't have a government after March 14th with funding. All of the Republicans are going to have to vote for the budget on March 14th. And we already know that there's 10 of them, 10 of these freedom fighters, Freedom Caucus, who are not going to agree to, unless there's tons of cuts, they're not going to agree to the budget that's being proposed by Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson wants to have a single budget that has everything. The Senate wants two separate budgets to go forward. So that's going to be a real problem. If there's no money, then how is the federal government going to honor the severance of 8 months that they're giving to these supposedly to these employees? It could be a contract that's not enforceable. Lisa Hearing just came on, Lisa West Hearing, and said, how do we get our congressmen to step up and do their jobs? Why is everyone letting it happen? I'll tell you why, Lisa. They want Doge to cut the world, cut it all. And they want President Trump to do it. Then they're going to say, we didn't have anything to do with this. This was President Trump. He did this on their own. If they have to cut, if they have to start cutting Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, their constituents are going to scream bloody murder at them and they're going to be pushed out of office. So all they're doing is sitting on their hands and letting Elon Musk take the incoming fire and Donald Trump. That's why this is happening. Um, it you know, government breaking it is so difficult to fix. You have a tech company and you break up a tech company and it doesn't work. In the tech world, well, you just fix it and you rebuild it and you go on. Not in government. And so what Trump and Musk and a lot of these Republicans are hoping is they know that once this goes through the court system, all these cuts, that the courts are going to rule against them. That the executive power that President Trump has been exceeded by what Doge is doing. And to work your way through the court system, this is another flaw in our founding fathers. It takes a long time. You lose in the district court, you go up to the Court of Appeals, then you go to the Supreme Court. Doing all these briefs and the hearings and the rehearings and everything and the reversals and new hearings takes about 4 years. Well, what's going to happen during the interim 4 years is all these people are going to be fired and cut, and they're going to go off to other jobs. And what happens in 4 years when the Supreme Court said, you know what, Donald Trump, you shouldn't have done that? Well, the Board of Educate, the Education Department is gone. They want a lot of FEMA gone. They want the USAID gone. How do you rebuild that at that time? And by the way, when you fire 2 million federal workers, where do you think they're going to go work? Who's going to hire them? You know, the private sector is only going to hire high treasury people in Wall Street or Defense Department people in the defense industry. But regular garden variety people who are social workers or mid-level managers doling out aid, they're going to get jobs. They're going to become part of the chronically unemployed. And this is really, really troubling to me. You know, the federal workers are not some faceless bureaucrats. These are people who have dedicated their lives to working for the government and the public. They believe in a public cause. They weren't in it for the money. You know, federal workers make $80,000 a year. Um, you know, Linda Limerick just said the economy is going to be wrecked. Well, that is the goal. The goal is to blow this up. Remember, that's what Steve Bannon said. We're going to blow this up. We're going to blow up the deep state. We're going to blow up this bureaucratic government. You know, Elon Musk said 2 days ago that it's a bureaucracy. It's supposed to be a democracy. Well, democracy is part of a bureaucracy. You have to have people that are smart enough and understand how to implement, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, the WIC program. Do you really want to cut out meals for poor families that their kids go to school and get breakfast and lunch? No, I don't want to do that. I'm happy that my tax dollars go to that. I don't want to live in a world where only rich people enjoy the fruits of their labor. I want some people who don't have everything to enjoy some of the fruits of my labor. I don't want to live in a society where poor people can't eat. I don't want to live in a society where babies who need medicine can't get it in an emergency room. No, I don't want to tell somebody who is homosexual or gay, get back in the closet. You can't live the life that you want to live. No, I'm not interested in going back 60 years and having a lot of the civil rights legislation that's been implemented totally reversed. I'm not saying that minorities should get a job over white people if they're not qualified. But if they are qualified, just as qualified as the white person, then yes, there needs to be a way for minorities, if they are just as qualified, to get a piece of the pie, to break the glass ceiling and get in the room. I believe the Senate has totally abdicated their advice and consent. They're appointing Tulsi Gabbard, who couldn't answer a question whether Edward Snowden was a traitor to this country and committed a seditious act by stealing secrets. Putting in Robert Kennedy. He was just approved today. Good for you, Mitch McConnell. Little too late. Mitch McConnell voted against RFK going into the Health and Human Services. RFK is a joke. Okay, yes, I applaud him for wanting to get rid of childhood illnesses and make us eat better and obesity, but some of his ideas are totally kooky. He didn't understand the difference between Medicaid and Medicare. It, it's stunning to me that we're putting a guy in there. This is a guy whose family, a Democratic family, he said that God answered my prayers and brought me to Donald Trump. He has embarrassed the Kennedy family for them now to have all come out against him. That tells you what they know about him, what he's done in private. Um, Look, I think Trump has done some good things. You're not going to like what I'm going to say right now, but I totally agree with banning transgenders in women's sports. It's just, I am for transgenders. I don't think they should be discriminated against, but female cannot compete against transgenders fairly. If transgenders want to compete, they either have their own league, what Martina Navratilova says, and she is a gay lesbian uh, proponent of gay rights. But she does not believe that females who are transgenders from male to female should play in female sports. I don't think it's fair. I think it's not fair to put them in the locker room with them. If they want to compete against the men, that's their own. If they were a man to begin with and then they become a female, then they're going to have to compete against males. That's just my 2 cents. You may be mad at me. Now we talk about sense. I totally agree with it. Trump, let's get rid of the penny. If he uses it, it isn't going to increase the price of goods. They're not going to raise the price 5 cents to a nickel or round it up. No, the competitiveness of the free market will keep the prices stable. It costs 3.5 cents to make a penny. 3.5 cents because of the cost of copper. Now, I did hear it actually costs 9.5 cents to make a nickel. So obviously, we're going wrong here. But get rid of the penny. I don't use it. I put it in, I'm Jewish, I put it in a tzedakah box, which means charity. And when it's filled, I take it to the synagogue or we have all over the house. I don't use them. I don't have them. I don't keep them. Um, Now let's talk about something that is very serious. I am absolutely a supporter of women's rights. I am pro choice. I believe that a woman who goes to work should be judged on the content of her character and the skill that she brings and her effort. I do not believe in sexual harassment. I believe in Title VII. I do not believe in sexual assault. I do not believe in human trafficking. Um, and I say that because I've had over 30 sexual harassment cases in my 36-year career. I've had cases where lawyers have had sex with clients, and that is absolutely wrong. It's an abuse of power. So, any type of abuse of power or the power balance in a relationship drives me nuts. Nancy Mace, earlier this week, got on the House floor and she talked about how she was, and I know she's a rape victim. She's been divorced twice. She has some children. She is a sexual assault victim from before, which is horrible. And she talked on the House floor about her ex fiance, Patrick Bryant. And she talked about how he filmed her and she did a whole bunch of other stuff. But she also, during that um, 4 hour dissertation on the floor, she also implicated three other men. Not that she's had any relationships with them, but said that they were part of this gang of people. And she called these four men rapists, predators, and sex traffickers. Now, if they are, I would pay for their ticket to go to the gate to hell, and I'll chase them to the gates of hell. But what she did, I think, was wrong. She got on the House floor and she talked for a long time and gave a speech that had nothing to do with ongoing legislation. What it had to do with her own personal issues. Now, I have a lot of issues with Nancy Mace. I applauded her when she voted to impeach President Trump. But I didn't like her screaming tranny, tranny, tranny last week. I certainly didn't like when she talked about sex at the prayer breakfast. I didn't like it when she made her staff uncomfortable when she talked about her sex life with her former fiance, Patrick Bryant. But that's her choice. Okay. And if she's a victim of sexual harassment, then she should sue. If she's a victim of sexual assault, then she should sue. I totally agree that if there's a criminal aspect to this, that it should be investigated. And if a crime took place, it's charged. But when you're on the well of the House of the Representatives, you have what's known as an absolute privilege to defame anybody. You can call Eric Bland a murderer. You can call Eric Bland a pedophile. You are absolutely immune from any type of liability. It's in the Constitution. It's called the Speech and Debate Clause. So these people can get on the floor of the House and say whatever they want, and they're absolutely immune from it. Say whatever they want that may not be true, and that's a scary thing. And there's families for these people involved. There's children of these men that were called predators, rapists, and human traffickers. And I think Nancy Mace did this because she's mad at Alan Wilson, who's the Attorney General for the state of South Carolina. And he's going to be a gubernatorial candidate next year when Governor McMaster term limits out of office. And Nancy Mace wants to run, it looks like, for governor. And so she's going to be battling Alan Wilson. And so she excoriated Alan Wilson on the House floor and said that he's suppressing the investigation into these rape allegations, these allegations that her ex fiance had 10,000 photos on his phone. I don't think the United States House of Representatives is where that takes place. If you want to say these things, then say them outside of the well of the House. Go in front of a microphone on the State House grounds and say it, because then you're subject to defamation. Don't have your minions send out your speech in advance. Don't have people tweet on your behalf. You take responsibility. You either sue, you either force a criminal investigation, or you get out in front of the microphone and you say these things and be subject to the law of defamation or libel. I think it's a very dangerous thing for Nancy Mace to have done that. I do agree with the speech and debate clause, but it should be speech and debate in connection with legislation that's before the House or the Senate, not your individual gripes, your individual motivations, or the fact that you are doing this as Nancy Mace, the potential gubernatorial candidate. I don't agree with the DOJ forcing the FBI to name people who participated in January 6th. These people, these FBI officials, did their job. And the interim FBI director resisted doing it, wouldn't release it. And then finally, Emil Bovell, who is Donald Trump's attorney and the deputy attorney general, in the Justice Department, he said he was going to fire the interim director, who's a Trump appointee, if he doesn't give out the names of these people. And they did. Why do they want the names of these people? If these people breached ethics, fine, fire them. If these people went outside the law, fire them. But people for doing their job shouldn't have fear of reprisal. There's a lot of people that once these names come out, they're going to go and harass these people, just like a lot of the January 6th Capitol Police officers are being harassed by people. So I do not agree with that. I do not believe that we should be outing these people, CIA directors, CIA officers, anything, because it puts them and their lives in danger. Now let's talk about Gaza, Palestine. Last week, when Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, was in Washington, D.C., Trump said from the microphone, I've been thinking about this for months, and what I want to do is displace the entire population of Palestinians in Gaza and make the Arab countries take them. And I want to totally demolish the rest of Gaza. He's right. It's going to take years and years and years to rebuild Gaza. I mean, 80% of it's destroyed. But I want to push all these people which is pure ethnic cleansing, by the way, folks, into Arab countries that do not want them. Egypt and Jordan do not want them. They don't want Hamas to come into their country and fortify and make operations from their countries. Remember, Hamas is still in existence. If you look at all the hostages that have been released, like 15 of them, you'll see all the Hamas is in uniform. There's still thousands and thousands of Hamas. And if we push these people into the Arab countries, they'll fortify there. But Donald Trump says we want to make Gaza into the Middle East Riviera. And he said the United States, first he said we're going to send soldiers there. Then he said the United States is going to own it. We're going to own Gaza. Israel's going to give it to us. It isn't Israel's to give. I'm pro Zionist, I'm pro Israel, but they can't just give it away. And what happened to Donald Trump, who said, we're done with wars. We're done with sending our troops over to another country. We're done with nation building. And then during his interview with Bret Baier, he said, I am going to own Gaza. It's going to be a real estate play, a development play, that he's going to develop the Gaza Strip. It's on beautiful beaches, some of Gaza. It's part of the beachfront area. He's going to develop it. No, the United States. It's not you, Donald Trump. You can't be president of the United States and own other countries. Yet we already know what's happening with Panama. We know that he wants to own the Panama Canal. We already know that Google's already renamed Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. He's already trying with Greenland. He's already trying to get, Iceland, and he's trying to get their property, Greenland or whatever, that's owned by the Dutch. They don't want it. They don't want to be part of the Dutch, Denmark, but they don't want the United States to own them. I certainly understand that it's for us. He's already screaming that Canada should be the 51st state. That's imperialism. That is taking away people's country. So um, I I don't know. I just don't know what I'm hearing about the Gaza war. Um, we've avoided being in a Middle East war for 80 years. Yes, we got involved in Afghanistan. Yes, we got involved in Iraq and in Kuwait, but it was really a theater war, not a full-blown Middle East war. Um, it is going to take a long time and a lot of money to rebuild that country. I don't know where those people are going to go, but the what I do know is the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia recognizing Israel is in grave danger. They do not want these people. They said we will not recognize Israel if Israel pushes these Gaza citizens, these Palestinian citizens, out of this country. Um, it's just stunning to me. Um, so now let's continue on. So Senators Young, Cassidy, and Collins, all Republicans, I am really disappointed in them. Senator Cassidy, for a month, said he was not going to vote for Robert Kennedy. Said that his whole idea about that 9/11 was a hoax and vaccinations, if people would have lived, if they were vaccinated properly on COVID and all, he turned and flipped because he's up for election next year. Susan Collins, she voted for Pete Hegseth. Um, and Senator Young, he was against Hegseth in the beginning. He was also against Kennedy. He voted for him too. They voted for Tulsi Gabbard. It's just stunning to me that we are now having our elected officials put in loyalists to Donald Trump in the cabinet, people who aren't qualified. I would not hire them. I'm telling you, I would not hire them in the private sector. Um, because of their lack of qualification and some of their crazy beliefs. Uh, Trump continues to threat Panama. He sent down Rubio to try to get more concessions from them. They didn't give any concessions. They're not willing to get up the Panama Canal. People are being sent to Guantanamo Bay. You want to send the rapists, the MS-13, the Triangular Gang from Venezuela, to Guantanamo Bay, have at it. Let's get rid of every one of these people. Every one of these people. but not people who have come to this country 20 years ago and are here illegally and are law abiding and have raised kids that are educated. I don't agree with that. Listen, guys, it wasn't that long ago in 2014 when Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Mike Lee, 8 different Republican and Democratic senators formed the Gang of Eight and said, let's have a path of citizenship for a lot of these illegals in this country. Make them register, make them get a driver's license, make them get car insurance, health insurance, pay taxes, and live a law abiding life. If you do that, within 6 or 7 years, you will become a U.S. citizen. And guess what? The Republicans won't go along with it. And now all of a sudden, Marco Rubio wants everybody out of our country. He was a Cuban immigrant. I'm not certain that his father and mother came here legally. They may have fled the Castro regime when he took over in the 60s. Donald Trump's wife's parents came here as illegal immigrants. Illegal. Not legal, illegal. His father in law and his mother in law. But they're somehow okay. Um, I'm pretty upset about that. I definitely want the bad people off the street. Some of the stuff that sanctuary cities are doing, get them off the street. Don't give them the money so that drug addicts can go and have drugs. Certainly, cars shouldn't be given to these people. Let's talk about the Kennedy Center. The Kennedy Center is an amazing place in Washington, D.C. Look, you go to New York, you got Broadway, you got tons of theaters. In Washington, D.C., you may have 2 theaters. All the good acts come to the Kennedy Center. Donald Trump fired the chairman of the Kennedy Center and replaced a lot of the board. And he put Rich Grenell as the new chairman of the um, Kennedy Center board. He's his foreign liaison and one of the openly gay people serving in his administration, as well as the Treasury Secretary is openly gay. He put them in charge. He also put his chief of staff on there. He put Steve Chinook, one of his press secretaries, on there. And Donald Trump, made himself chairman of the board. And Donald Trump said, we're going to have the greatest acts in the world. Remember, he doesn't like Taylor Swift. He likes YMCA, the Village People. He likes Neil Sedaka, Neil Diamond, all these, different kind of things that many people like. But we need diversity, DEI, but we need different acts. And he got all mad because I guess they showed some drag shows there. So let's not make it a loaf of white bread at the Kennedy Center. Let's see some different acts. So let's wait and see on that. But I'm a little troubled. The tariff situation. It's just so haphazard. He says he's going to do it on Monday, then he doesn't do it. He got rolled by Canada and Mexico when he deferred them for 30 days. They didn't give him anything. They didn't give him anything. They already had put in place in Canada that they were going to spend uh, $11.5 million on border security. Mexico said they were going to hire 2,000 more border officers. Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, that was put in place 8 months ago. He's putting tariffs in place. Ladies and gentlemen, when you put tariffs in place across the board, these countries are going to put tariffs on our products, and it's going to cause inflation. The Federal Reserve Board was supposed to lower interest rates 4 different times in 2025 to get the home building industry back on track. It's not going to happen. Now they're forecasting it may be 1 or 0. The home building industry's in the toilet with these high interest rates, but they can't do it because we have inflation. Oh, thanks, Travis. I'm so full of shit. I appreciate it. Thank you. We have inflation. We have price of eggs going up, price of gas going up, price of heat is going up, or the fuel costs, whether it's crude oil, whether it's oil for your furnaces. This is the problem. And when you put tariffs in place, then they raise the prices of the goods. And China is going to come in and become the reliable trading partner because we're breaking the Mexico-Canada agreement that Trump put in place in 2017 if we put tariffs in place. And so these countries are going to say, we can't rely on the United States to stick with an agreement. We're going to go trade with China. And that's going to be a problem. We cannot become so isolated. The world is an integrated place that we have to trade with one another. Um, he put on uh, Travis Brooks again, said, "Hey, Eric, stick to what you're good at." Here's a real good thought, Travis. How about get the hell off my site? You don't have to listen to it. Why would you listen to somebody that you don't like or you disagree with? Life is too precious. Um, Someday I'd like to have a real discussion with an asshole like you. All right, number two, U.S. Postal. They were going to stop all packages coming in from China that were in packages under $8. That was going to be what they did. The U.S. Postal reversed it the next day. Um, I want to talk now about this trade that was heard around the world. Anthony Davis was traded to the Dallas Mavericks. In return, the Mavericks trade one of my favorite players, Luka Doncic. Um, Thanks, Tommy. Tommy Moore just said, "Hey, Travis, piss off." Luka Doncic is 25 years old. Anthony Davis is 32 years old. When Anthony Davis is healthy and plays, he's one of the top five best players in the league. He's an amazing defensive player. But his nickname is Street Clothes that Charles Barkley gave him because he's in street clothes more than he's in his uniform. Luka Doncic is 25 years old. Yes, he's a little bit pudgy, but the guy is an absolute five-tool player like Larry Bird. Defense, shooting, passing, dribbling, um, and scoring. Um, I think it's a great trade for the Lakers. No sooner did AD get traded in his first game. He looked amazing in the first half. He's scheduled to hit 40 points, had 28 points and 12 boards in the first half. He got injured in the third quarter and he pulled his groin and now he's out for a couple weeks. So I think that's a great trade for the Lakers long term. They still need a big man. They were going to get the center from the Hornets, and they were going to trade Dalton Knecht, who played for Tennessee and was their first round draft pick with a couple of players. But he came in and failed his physical. So the Lakers are still going to have to get a center. Daniel Penny, you remember Daniel Penny? He was the New York subway hero who subdued a crazy man on the subway train. I totally disagreed that he should be prosecuted for manslaughter, second degree murder. Fortunately, the jury held him not guilty, and he's ended up getting a job in Silicon Valley. Good for him. Everybody on that train testified how scared they were and how appreciative what Daniel Penny did. Um, I don't like paying $8 a dozen of eggs. I eat an egg every morning. I used to eat four or five when I was a bodybuilder, but now I eat one. I don't like paying that kind of money. Um, the next thing is Mayor Adams of New York City. The charges were dismissed without prejudice. What does that mean? That means they could be rebrought. That is a disgrace. Mayor Adams was accused of corruption in 2021 when he was running for mayor. He was taking foreign money. In return, he was going to promote a consulate for Turkey. They wanted to buy this building and put their consul there. And the fire marshal of New York City would not let the building be passed because they said it was a fire risk. And he took that money um, and he was charged with corruption. He was just about to be further charged on a supersedious indictment um, uh, on a supersedious indictment for conspiracy for bribery. And what happened? The Emil Bovey, who is in a conflict of interest. Let me explain why. He's the deputy attorney general. Deputy attorney general. He was Donald Trump's personal attorney in the lawsuit where he was convicted of sexual assault of inappropriate touching on the lady in the it was Neiman Marcus or Henry Bendel, one of those high fluty stores in New York City, and he got popped with a $105 million verdict. Now he is the attorney for the government. He's not Donald Trump's attorney, but he's doing things for Donald Trump personally. once when he was a defense attorney, and attorneys can't do that. It's called a conflict of interest. You can't be on both sides of the equation. But he instructed the Southern District, New York U.S. Attorney, and those are the best attorneys in the country in that U.S. Attorney office because they prosecute Wall Street criminals and a lot of the international crimes and drug cartels. And he told them, drop the charges. The head of that office, who was the head prosecutor for um, the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecuting Mayor Adams, said, I'm resigning today. She wouldn't do it. Two more people in the corruption division in Washington, D.C. These are two heads, not rank and file, but two department heads resigned over releasing these criminal charges against Mayor Adams. And the reason that they gave is they didn't give that he was innocent. They said it's political reasons. We don't want him running for mayor with these charges because the polls show that Andrew Cuomo, former governor who was disgraced, is beating him on the Democratic polls. And now Adams is beholding to Trump, and Trump is asking him to relax the sanctuary city rules so that it can get all the immigrants that shouldn't be in New York City out. So it's a quid pro quo. And Mayor Adams now is talking about running as a Republican. Um, so that's a real problem. Let's talk now about some wrap-up questions. People that have asked, what rights do all these FBI agents, and this is from Jackie, and prosecutors, attorneys general, and other civil employees have that they're letting go without cause? They have a right to sue, but they have to get lawyers, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. First, you have to go through the administrative uh, rigmaroles before you can actually get to court. It's a long, drawn out process. The government has all the money, has all the time, and it's very costly to get a lawyer. What Vicky asked, what are my thoughts on common law marriage? Um, I don't agree with it. We don't have it in South Carolina. People should get married. If they're not married, they live together, but you can't call yourself husband and wife without the legality of marriage. It creates a problem when they separate. So I do not agree with common law marriage. Um, I already discussed, Kathy, that please discuss the legality of Musk's team of unidentified workers grabbing control of government computers that contain Social Security numbers. I've already talked about that. Um, Next, they wanted me to talk about Nancy Mace. I talked about it. Catherine, I did the whole discussion about what Nancy Mace did on the floor. I thought it was wrong. I'm not a fan of Nancy Mace, not a huge fan of Alan Wilson, but I do think it's unfair to blindside him. He is the Attorney General of the state. He does not prosecute individual crimes. He deals with interstate crimes and he deals with crimes that local prosecutors can't do because there's a conflict of interest. Jackie, this former South Jersey girl living in Atlanta, wants to know how excited were you when the Eagles won? I'm telling you, I cried. I hugged my wife. I hugged my son. It was just a long time coming. I thought they played really well. Um, what is the latest on the Stephen Smith case? Really nothing to report, which is disappointing. I don't see SLED doing anything that I'm hearing about either behind the scenes or publicly. We have done billboards and we've upped the reward to $50,000 and we're going to do a charity walk run in the spring for Stephen. Um, so that is it for this weekly update. It was pretty long, almost an hour. And in closing, what I want is everybody, let's be kind to one another. Let's show some grace to people. Let's show some grace to people that don't have what we have, people that come to this country because maybe they're being persecuted in their own country or they're coming here for a better life. Yes, there are a lot of criminals coming here and people are emptying their jails and different stuff, but there are some decent people coming here. And we just need to be kind to each other. Valerie Hallery just said, just a tiny personal opinion. I showed up thinking I might be a hater, but these weekly roundups are packed with valuable information. You're smart and knowledgeable about a lot of things. So this is definitely part of what you're good at. Wow. That is so humbling. You almost made me cry, Valerie. I really appreciate that. And so everybody, God bless and good night.